Right, so firstly, what is your name and what is your role at Larkhall Club?
I'm Paul Rankin, I'm chairman of the club.
So firstly, where did the idea of installing a 3G pitch come from and what's been the process been like so far?
Well, it's been a 10 to 12 year programme of trying to develop football at the club, and we recognise that the future is to build a legacy built around the youth section and trying to get the 500-600 children that play for the club being able to play and train at this facility.
What were your initial thoughts when it got announced that you were actually going to be able to do all of this stuff and the pitch was about to be built, sort of thing?
Well, the first step was to try and get planning approval, and that in itself is a hurdle, particularly in the area we're in, with an area of outstanding natural beauty. So the planning process was a 12-month process, and then once we've got that, the next stage was to raise the funds to be able to enable it.
And was raising the funding probably the hardest part, you'd say, of this process?
Yeah, well, we've spent around 950,000, and the club is built on volunteers, so we're a hand to mouth organisation. So absolutely, it was a tremendous achievement to achieve that level of funding with support from a number of different bodies.
Yeah, and what were those bodies that did help invest into?
Yeah, so achieving a target of 950,000 was built on crowdfunding. We achieved 150,000 in crowdfunding. We had 100,000 from our local authority. The Premier League Improvement Fund gave us 130,000. So that was the main foundations of the fundraising to reach our target, alongside a commercial loan of a small amount which is affordable going forward.
And was there any personal investment from anyone who perhaps might have wanted just to invest into their local community or club?
Yeah, we had some very kind donations. They'll remain anonymous, but they made those donations which made the project possible because they saw the value of what we were trying to do.
So if you could just talk me through the process of acquiring the 3G pitch from a whole timeline. So from the very beginning, obviously conversations of, yeah, we think this might be something we'd like to do, all the way to the first game, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. So the starting point was to get everyone on board with the project. When you go to a leadership committee or a club committee and tell them you want to spend £900,000, that's a little bit of a shock. So we created the One Club, One Vision aspiration, which involved the youth set up as well, and tried to create some momentum around that type of initiative. Once we got the planning permission, it was identifying potential contractors, and we did that. We worked with an organisation called PST. They had a good history of building pitches, and they believed in the project that we were trying to deliver. So once we got the contractors on board, it was a mobilisation process, which is harder than it looks because of our location, restrictions on access to the site. Getting materials in was always going to be a challenge. But we achieved that, and we started from the last game of the season. We were on the pitch the following Monday. We cut the turf. Some of the older guys in the club cut the turf, and then it was a 16-18 week programme of building. It wasn't just the 3G pitch, it was our 250-seater stand. It was an upgrade of the floodlights to LED, and the planning permissions require a lot more than just the build. It's the ecological studies, it's the landscape impact studies, and all those other hurdles that we've got to jump across to make sure it's delivered as the planning permission requires.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of the different contractors. Some people aren't aware just how many contractors can do a 3G pitch, and kind of the varying levels of success and speed especially being one of them. What were the main things you were looking at when you did go to PST?
Well, it was compliance. It was making sure that it was going to be built to the standards required, and this is a FIFA Pro standard pitch. So it's the best in the area, it's the best quality pitch. It has a 7 to 10 year lifespan dependent on the usage. So that was the key issue. It had to be affordable, and they had to convince us that they could deliver it in the time frames over the closed season before the start of the first game of the next season.
Yeah, what have been the main hurdles you've had to overcome?
Yeah, okay. Because there was always going to be an element of a commercial loan required as well, convincing the lenders that we had the resources to support that loan was a hurdle in itself. It was time consuming. The due diligence applied on that process is extreme, but ultimately we achieved that, And not only did we achieve a commercial loan of 100,000, but that organisation granted us 50,000 as well. So that made a hell of a difference to us, and I think it confirmed that we were building a project for the future that was sustainable and would achieve our aspirations, our goals, and our vision ultimately. The other contractors that we had on board were generally local. We tried to support the local economy and use contractors that we knew as well. I think you can see from the quality of the build that it's been tremendous. We had hurdles with cutting down the trees, and again we've got a replanting program to make sure that we maintain that ecological balance on the site. But yeah, there were so many hurdles, from earth removal to getting materials in, to getting the contractors to work in conjunction with each other, and all trying to end the project by the 1st of September, which is what we achieved ultimately.
Yeah, and obviously due to some of the area that we live in, a lot of people, as you say, want to protect, especially the green area surrounding Bath and all of those sorts of things. Were there any pushbacks when it was first announced of like, hang on, we don't want all of this redevelopment going on up here, we don't want the natural landscape to be damaged at all? Were there anyone who was saying this isn't sustainable, it's not natural, those sorts of things?
No, I don't think we had one complaint. The local parish council were on board. We engaged with the local neighbours. Everyone could see the value of what we were trying to achieve. And ultimately, as a club, we've reduced our carbon footprint by reducing the number of journeys that all of those parents of the 600 children were making to other locations. They're coming to this location. The project hasn't finished. We need to improve the access to the site, the car parking, things like that, but that will come in time. The 3G pitch, there's some controversy over the crumb that's used, but at the time of applying, it complied with the planning process, the planning regulations, and it's well maintained. As long as you maintain it well, there's very little spillage of crumb off of the playing surface, and that's the key concern with new pitch installation.
Yeah, what was the communication like with, I imagine obviously with your first game being delayed and having to be played at Bath City Ground, we won't talk about that too much, but what was the communication like with the league and obviously with the players, letting them know that this is going on and things might not be ready in time, or the fact that you know, what did they say about when you said we're going to be building a 3G pitch? Did they like it? Did they prefer a grass pitch?
Yeah. I think from the players' perspective there was some reservations. Some players didn't like the thought of playing on a artificial surface, and I think there was some doubt about whether we could achieve it in the timescale that we planned to. But ultimately, if you speak to the players now, I think the surface is 100% better than they thought it would be. We have visiting teams come up here and they're taking photos of the playing surface and the surroundings before the game, and we've not had one complaint or one negative comment about the surface from any of the games.
Do you think that this development can be a bit of a spearhead within the league as well? Because, you know, as you say, people coming here and going, hang on, this is a fantastic idea. We've got the players like it, the community likes it, the youth like it. Do you think that other clubs will begin to start taking those steps towards building a 3G pitch?
I think with climate change, I think at this time of year as well, you're seeing so many games getting called off. It's the only way forward, particularly for a community club that needs to generate more revenue, need to have more activity. You can't have a pitch that's only being used once or twice a week. And already we've had a number of clubs come to visit us to see what we've done within the budget that we had, and being the type of club we are a small club, but we've certainly gone beyond what we thought was possible 18 months ago.
What's been the biggest change in terms of like the football operational sides around having the 3G pitch? Obviously, I imagine there's like maintaining the grass surface was obviously quite a lot, as you say, for the volunteers. I know coming up here, whenever there was always someone cutting the grass or digging something up. Has that changed within the club at all?
The big change is, as you said, not having to cut the grass or replace the divots that were being done constantly. All it takes is one or two brushes of a week to keep it in good order. I think it's a change of behaviour really. We've got to make sure that the users don't litter the place, they tidy up after, they put the goals back up on the wheels, all these sorts of things, which we're learning as we go along. But the real change is that instead of having one game a week now, we can plan on having 5 or 6 games a week, which makes a hell of a difference to the operation and the revenue that can be generated as well.
Yeah, obviously, just before we started recording, you said to me that traditionally there was only going to be one game on a weekend. That would be the first team possibly playing on the Saturday. With the introduction of the development side, that could be maybe two if they played on a Sunday. But off camera, again, you mentioned that it's going to be 6 this weekend. Just how big of a change is that for you as a club?
Well, it's massive because the activity at the club now starts at 9:30 in the morning and will go through to 6, 7 o'clock at night. So that's the parents coming along to watch the children. It's the children playing the games. That trickles into the first team event, so we get spectators coming early to watch the end of the games before, and that means people in the clubhouse. So it's a game changer. It absolutely is. It isn't all about the money. It's about access to the facility and building that legacy, so those youngest players have a future or have a pathway from under 6, under 7, all the way through to adult football. That's what the project is about.
What role does the 3G pitch play in supporting the youth setup?
Well, I think first of all, I keep using the word access. So instead of travelling all around Bath and playing on surfaces that aren't ready for their level of football, they can come here and play on a really good surface. So the quality of the football and the quality of the coaching should improve because you've got that consistency. And you're seeing a better level of football as well. Even with the first team, you're seeing the first team play the game on the ground a lot more. We're not losing so many footballs over the trees and over the banks, and the quality from a spectator perspective, we're getting positive comments from the crowd that come here and saying we're playing a better quality. So that starts at under 7 level. It means the coaches are working in a clean environment. They can pass over their coaching messages to the players, and the players can work in an environment without being covered in mud, without the ball bouncing away when they're trying to control it, and it's a safe environment as well. And the next stage really is to build an analysis suite or something like that, so that we can give that feedback off of the training field, so that we can further develop players.
Are there any negatives to having a 3G pitch, particularly that we might not be aware of, as someone who's obviously not gone through all of the processes of the planning, the sustainability and all those things?
Yeah, the negative side is that you've got to build for the future, because every year you need to be contributing to a sink fund to replace that carpet. That's probably around 20 to 30,000 pound dependent on the usage, because the replacement of the carpet will be in 7 to 10 years. So that's always in the back of your mind. You've also got to be able to facilitate the loans or the financing that you've achieved to deliver the project. And then you've got to get the volunteers on board to work differently to how they were working before. As we said, it's not cutting the grass anymore. It's maintaining the facility in a different way. And then it's the culture, it's the change of the culture, having all these people come to your club that were never there before, without perhaps respecting it in the way that the people that have been here for 20, 30, 40 years understand. So it's a journey that we're on, but it's an enjoyable journey because you see the improvements on a day-to-day basis.
And from a personal perspective, I can imagine obviously if you have the things of the loan and things like that, it can be quite stressful for you. How was it during that period, especially when the pitch was being built and you might not know if your first game is going to be at home in time and those sorts of things?
Yeah, the stress throughout the project was obvious. That's why I've got so many grey hairs, I guess. But I always had confidence that with the team we had around us that we would deliver. There may have been a delay of a week or 2 weeks, but we had contingency in place, which was the Bath City venue, to use that if necessary. The league understood where we were. So ultimately, there was always an end date which we would have reached. We had the luck with the weather as well. The summer was pretty good, so that didn't delay the contractors. So everything fell in our favour, but ultimately that's through good planning right at the beginning, making sure we had the finances, and it was just good project management, really.
Speaking to you about the project management, was that you at the top, or was there anyone else in and around that you'd like to talk about and their contributions to that as well?
Yeah, it was a team effort. I think I probably took responsibility for pushing through the planning process and raising the higher level funds, but I couldn't have done that without the contacts from the network within the club. And then from a project delivery perspective, that's not my expertise, but we've got people in the club. Lindsay Jacobs, for example, on a day-to-day basis was consulting and working with the contractors to deliver the project as it's turned out.
In a rough estimate, how much money would you say is being saved by having the 3G pitch? both from a first team perspective, obviously allowing all games to be played. Very rarely will it ever be called off on a 3G pitch, and obviously the main bit of, I imagine, the economic side, having all of the youth set up here now.
That's an interesting question, because ultimately, from a youth perspective and a senior club perspective, we were probably spending around 45,000 a year using training facilities elsewhere. However, the youth are using the facility but still contributing financially, because otherwise the facility won't be sustainable. We won't be able to replace the carpet. So from that element, we've saved money, but we're spending it for ourselves, to our own benefit. The biggest gain is in the revenue that you can achieve, commercial revenue, outside of the hours which the youth aren't using. But as I said, the youth are using the facility every evening from 5 o'clock through to 9:30 generally. So we've only got availability in the daytime slots. So that's the goal now. We've got to engage with the local community, schools, organisations, and try and get them up here to use the facility in the daytime.
Yeah, one of the, obviously being a local lad as well, one of the only facilities actually available that was all weather was the odd down pitch that was previously up there, and they had a £1 to play for an hour. Do you think that's something that you could introduce down here as well, because it was so successful up there as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. We've got to have the people that want to play for £1 an hour, and maybe we've only had the pitch opening through the winter months. So I think once we get to April and all the training stops and the like, I think that is an opportunity, or through the school holidays and things like that, which a group of boys and girls can get together, pay £1 and come and have access to the pitch. I think that's how it will work. We're open to any suggestions, to be honest. We want to maintain the quality, because that's what this is all about. As I said earlier, it's a FIFA Pro standard pitch. It's the best in the area. So it's not the same as an odd down community facility. We were determined to make it look like a football stadium, and it looks like a football stadium to me. So that's important to remember.
Yeah, and would that be a worry? Was it worry when you were obviously considering all of these things that, yeah, as you said before, people might not treat it with the same respect that it probably should be?
Well, I think if you look at community facilities, they're generally surrounded by high fencing. You feel enclosed. Sometimes you'll see the goals alongside the pitch. Although the goals are on the pitch at the moment while we're filming, usually for match days they're outside of the pitch barrier, and that was important to us. We don't want spectators having their views distorted by looking through nets and things. So you are right, people will come here and think it's similar to an odd down or a other community facility, but I think once they get used to it and they see how it's managed and the importance that we play on respecting our surroundings, then that soon changes.
Is there anything that you'd like to mention around, like, obviously the new stand and the new floodlights as well coming into play?
Yeah, the stand is a game changer as well. It's a 250-seater stand. It was driven by Steve Hall. We had lots of buy-in from the local community. Planning permission for that was an achievement in itself, because of the size in comparison to the old bike shed that we used to have. But it gives a tremendous viewing platform for spectators that come here. The floodlights give us flexibility. They're LED. We can operate it from an app on our phone, which is technology beyond some of us. But it enables us to operate at 50% strength as well when there's coaching, and then ramp it up to 100% when there's a game. So it gives us total flexibility. But also we value our environment, our community. We have a pond at the end of the pitch, which helps with the drainage. So that's got some biodiversity gain in that area. We're replanting hedges and trees, and we've sold some land to the Bath beekeepers, so they have a home on our site as well.
Can you share any examples of how the pitch has brought people together or created new opportunities?
The pitch every single day brings people together and gives us opportunities, whether it's the youth dads and coaches playing games against each other and all the parents coming along to have a laugh at that, or whether it's the youngest players having their holiday camps or their birthday parties or on the pitch or in the clubhouse. You know, that's all important. It's a community facility. We want the local neighbours to be able to use it. A good example would be the firework display, where we had over 1,000 people up here for that. We are in the community for the community. That's what we tried to do.
Would you say you've seen an increase in participation and interest in the club since obviously the whole of the development has come into play?
We have a project in the background called Project 250, and that's all about increasing the crowds on a Saturday. Our average gate last season was around about 190. The difference between 190 and 250 is tremendous from a revenue perspective, activity at the club, just a general atmosphere around. So that's what we're working on with our supporters club, with the youth section as well, trying to improve our social media, our presence, and we're achieving around about 230 at the moment for average games. So that's been a real achievement this season.
What are you most proud of regarding this project?
Gosh, that's a question, isn't it? I think when we started off and we put that strapline up about one vision, one club, I think I can see the result of that developing every single day that I come up here and walk around. So we've managed to bring on board all of the youth section and the senior club, delivered a project on time within budget, which is the obvious target when you start these things. And I think the community, the wider community, can see that we've delivered something which will leave a legacy and be sustainable, which is important.
If you could deliver a message to the local community about the project, what would you have to say?
Come up and see it for yourself and see what a success it is. Come at 9:30 in the morning on the Saturday and see the under-9s playing football, and stay until 6 o'clock when the adult teams are finished. And I'm sure you'll appreciate how valuable the project is and how involved we are within the community, because it's local children and adults playing for their local club.